Today on the Dream World podcast, I'm talking to TeZa I, who's a spiritual activist, author, artist, light worker. She's awesome, and she's here telling us about her journey with spirituality and life and becoming her highest self. We talk about creative dreaming, meditation, and all the tools we have in life that can help us heal and internally calm our mind. So very much welcome her, and I'm thankful that she's here with us.
So basically, I began dreaming intensely when I was a child, and I paid attention to those dreams because they were really wild. And I like wild things. I like wild, intense things. And I remember being in my dream body and being able to fly everywhere and flying downstairs, flying away from people pursuing me for whatever reason. And that seemed to be the common theme when I was a child, flying. And I know that that's a very common theme for many people, like it's an archetype. My husband and I talk about dreams all the time because he was raised in the Edgar Cayce tradition, which is a mystical Christianity path. And they work with dreams a lot as they work with other forces of higher consciousness. So we talk about our daily dreams. And, we don't try to analyze each other's dreams, but it's a living part of our lives together. Actually, it's part of our prayer life also. As I started growing, I didn't have escape dreams so much, which I think the flying is. I think that that's escaping. I became more centered in my power in my dreams. And because I'm an artist, I would document all these visions I had. So my artwork is very much involved in my dream life. And to this day, I call most of my work dream times, which of course is what the Aboriginal people from Australia call their life with the spirits, dream times and walkabouts and all that. So my dream times are usually based on themes, but sometimes they come from my dreams and sometimes not, because these days my dreams have become so integral with my waking life that I find it hard to differentiate, to tell you the truth. And I no longer allow myself to have what I call daydreams. I used to daydream a lot, but I found that that was not constructive for the work I wanted to do in this life. So I taught myself how to not daydream because I wanted to have my mind clearer. And that's when I got into meditation and using a mantra to focus my mind. So I would not go into the dream state when I was awake. But in my sleeping state, I invite all the dreams that I can. And when I wake up, I can usually say, oh, that was interesting. And I need to record that in my little dream book that I keep by my bedside all the time. Or I can say, well, that was my brain sorting out all the rackaroo and all the just refuse left over from a day of being. And it's just the brain sorting it out. So I can tell pretty much when I'm dealing with what I call a prophetic dream, a dream that I need to pay attention to. And so I'll just talk about one of the most important ones I remember. So when I was beginning, I think my 30s, because I am now in my 70s. I'm in my wisdom years, although I don't act like it. And I had a very wonderful dream that I call the wave of power dream. And this wave came from long far away. I was on a shore, an unknown shore to me of the ocean. And I was standing with friendly spirits because they definitely were in their spirit bodies. And I might have been in my spirit body. I don't remember that being the case. I was just comfortable with them being spirits, and I was just in my physical body. From far off in the distance, I saw this huge bank of water, like a tidal wave, coming right toward me. And the spirits were very calm, so I was calm. And nobody was in a panic, and everybody was just observing this wave, this huge, gigantic wall of water coming right towards us, that if it had been happening in real life, we would have all panicked. We would have all known that we had to run for our lives or else we would be killed. But I just remained on the beach And the wave came and it lifted me up. And I was like a innocent surrendered to the wave of power. And it lifted me high in the sky. I could see the earth down below, and I could see all sorts of things captured within the body of this wave. There were animals and there were other beings, but there were no other humans. There were things and energy. And I had to keep my body really close to my torso. Otherwise, I knew that I would be ripped to shreds because the power was so intense. So I remained in this position of complete surrender and safety and knowing that I was being taken care of. But this wave lifted me high in the sky. And it was like gaining a different perspective, like higher than any skyscraper, higher than any plane could go. That's the way this powerful wave was. And then it eventually just brought me slowly back to earth. It was an experience, but it's an experience that I have created with my artwork over and over again, because that kind of energy and that kind of safety and that surrender to that powerful force that we all have within us has remained with me so vibrant that I can do a million paintings or drawings or sculptures of it whenever I want to. And I also have written about it, because in my 4 books, I talk a lot about dreams and what they have meant to me in my life. And the wave of power began when I paid attention to the messages that were coming to me.
And I love that. I think it's such a beautiful journey you've had. And the art dreams, of course, we'll get into that, because I'm actually doing my master's thesis on creative dreaming. So definitely talk about that. Yeah, I love hearing about people's dream arts. And also the other thing was the prophetic dreams. You know, I hear a lot of people talking about this, because I think we all have these gifts, and the trick is learning, like you said, to understand your dreams, to listen to the messages, to look at it from the right perspective. So I guess I wanted to ask you about, how has that been for you in general? How do you learn to differentiate, oh, this is a prophetic dream, this is a message, or this is just helping me with something going on in my life right now?
Well, I think it's practice makes perfect. And just like anything in life, like for instance, when we meet a new person, we who are sensitive are attuned to the vibration of that person. We can feel, oh, that person has a high vibration, or that person has a really low one. And I really am attracted to high vibration people. I imagine you and all your listeners are, because that's what it takes to be a person who deals with the subconscious. So having had enough experiences with meeting people who are of a low vibration and not paying attention to that inner voice that says, this person really has too low of a energy vibe for you, unless that person is asking you for help or, needs something specific that you can help them, because you always want to help other people. But I have learned to listen to that voice and not go down that path, where I seek out and also attract people who are of a higher vibration, because we learn to discern that. So the same with a dream. When I wake up and it's just like a crazy mishmash of this and that and that and this, I can tell that, I could spend the rest of my life trying to analyze that. And where will it get me? Nothing but like in a mixing bowl of, just like a blended soup of nothing. So I can tell that, because when you have a prophetic dream, what I call a pay attention to me dream, you just feel it. You wake up and you say, wow, that was a message. And so I instantly reach for my little dream journal that I keep very accessible, because usually if you wait too long, you will forget some major details. But that's okay too, because what comes into our consciousness from a dream may be piecemeal, one vision at a time, one clear picture at a time. And it's almost like putting together a puzzle. Matter of fact, a series of big sculpture paintings are called Dream Times. The first ones I did were of the theme where you only see fragments, a fragment here, a fragment there, like an image there, and almost like snapshots. So there's not really a storyline, but yet those images put together will create a theme or a direction or something that's compelling you to do some more looking into.
We'll be right back.
Are you interested in yoga, meditation, and reading spiritual self-help books? Do you admire spiritual teachers such as Oprah, Gabrielle Bernstein, or Eckhart Tolle? Now let me ask you, do you find yourself contemplating life's biggest, most mysterious questions? Me too, which is why I started the Cultivating Spiritual Curiosity podcast. On this show, I talk with spiritual leaders about everything: yoga, mental health, therapy, intuition, spirit guides, law of attraction, mediumship, and so much more. Click the links below to join our eye-opening conversations.
Like you said, it's learning your dream language, learning to tap into the feeling and practicing. I think it's really a beautiful thing. And do you feel like everybody can do this, or are some people more natural, prophetic dreamers?
Well, I've met many people say, oh, I'm a lucid dreamer. Well, my answer to that is we all are.
Yeah.
And we are all psychic. Yeah. And we are all clairvoyant. Mm-hmm. It's just that many of us are in a state of denial or are not interested, period, because for whatever reason. But at any time in life, that interest can be awakened. In the yoga world, that's called the Kundalini awakening, when all of a sudden you have this yearning to know what is the spiritual world about, because the dream world is the connection of the spiritual world. It's like our main line besides meditation. The two of them are very, very strongly connected to our spiritual life. And you're probably familiar with sand play. It's a Jungian form of therapy that is very, very close to the dream state. And I have 2 stepchildren. I'm now a step grandmom. And when the kids were really young, they were disturbed because of, a bad divorce. So we sent them to a sand play therapist, which is nonverbal therapy. And you work with images and you work with playing in the sand. And this was devised by Jungian people who work with dreams a lot. So I have a lot of respect for the connection between the images that we work with in real life, the images that come up in our dream life, and how healthy our spiritual life is. Now, some people, they might get an F in spirituality because they never came to class, they just weren't there. They just didn't care. But I think we're all awakening. I do believe that the planet has already awakened, and that there are more of us who are spiritually awakened than there are not. This is my belief. And it's like the tipping point has been reached. So everybody who wants to can learn how to work with their dreams, like the lucid dreaming, for instance. When I wake up with a very disturbing dream, I mean, it's almost unacceptable. It's like an X-rated movie going on in my dream. And I'll say, this does not serve any purpose for me to see all this horror. And I'm just going to rewrite the script. So I just tell myself that I'm going to have a different ending. And I go back in the middle of whatever scene I left off at and rewrite it as I'm going into the dream state. And everything always works out just fine. You don't wake with a disturbed psyche, because if you don't do that, you will have a disturbed psyche. And before I learned how to do that, I would spend many a day just completely in an off emotional day, because I either woke up crying or distraught because there was horrificness going on in my dream life. But that, I believe, is just the processing of whatever it is that we are going through in our lives. And we have the free will to say, oh, I really don't want this X-rated stuff in my brain, in my soul, in my psyche. So we can paint it out.
That's true. Yeah, it's really amazing how learning dream work and lucid dreaming can help with nightmares and those negative dreams. And, it takes practice. None of this stuff is easy. It takes the conscious effort. but it can be so beautiful. And I love how you said that we all have this power to awaken spiritually. And, I also feel like me and you are doing this beautiful podcast we're doing, we're helping people with their awakening journey by teaching about these things and helping people find their own way. Because like you said, there's lucid dreaming, there's meditation, there's different ways to grow spiritually. So I always thought that was such a beautiful connection.
Yeah, I can give you a really good example of how working with our dreams can help us to become mentally more stable and happier people. Well, I was an abused child, and I won't get into how, but I repeated the abuse in my dreams. So from the age of 10, I had nightmares, and they were horrific. And by the time I got in college, I had already explored the addiction world because I had to, try to numb myself. And so I'm in recovery now for many decades. So that was, just one of the paths that I had to take. But during those dark days, my nightmares were so horrific that I couldn't sleep at night. And I was a freshman in college, and I discovered the only time I could sleep without being haunted by these nightmares was the daytime. So I would take naps, and then I could catch an hour or two of sleep without the nightmares. So when I finally learned how to meditate, which came right around at the beginning of my 20s, I had relief. I had relief because the psyche is so connected with the state that we go into in meditation with the dream state that you can do a lot of the work that, we could do subconsciously in our dream state, but we do it in meditation. So when I first started meditating, I went back and I healed all those damaged parts. They were so necessary to be given the balm of self-love, which meditation is part of. And little by little, I healed myself. And things happened I would just fall asleep because meditation was so deep and my psyche was so damaged. My nervous system was distraught that I would just fall asleep. Well, that's what I needed. And so probably the first year of meditation was just going into slumber, but a deep, deep slumber where I didn't have any horrific nightmares, which I hadn't had since early childhood. So, and that's how my journey of healing began with meditation.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That is very inspiring because, I have a lot of people on my social medias too that say similar things. I have these nightmares. I don't even want to go to sleep, And, it's sad, but it also excites me because I know that there's healing available there for them. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
When it comes to meditation in general, I also see a lot of people talking about, oh, how do I do this? I'm not doing this right. What do you say about getting over that and just doing it?
Right. Just do it.
Yeah.
Well, I have a whole YouTube channel devoted to what I call mind stillers, which is just another word for meditation. And every other week I put a new one up because it's basically my mission to make it available for people to see how you can get into this state without much fuss. And it's basically just learning to stop the wheels of thinking. And so the mind goes into a different gear. It's almost like developing a psychic muscle. So when I first learned, I was really messed up. Oh, boy, was I messed up. And meditation came to me as a rocket ship of freedom. And some people don't have that amazing relief, but I did because my mind was so disturbed. So the techniques are as varied as there are people. Some people just like the plain old basic, follow your breath, which is a surefire way of calming yourself. And that's, as a yoga person, all my life I've been a yoga person. The very first thing people should learn when they're trying to go into the higher realms of our consciousness is how to breathe. And that seems so stupid to even say that because everybody says, well, of course I know how to breathe. But I was teaching girls in prison, juveniles who are in lockup. And I took it as my gift to give them yoga and meditation for free. I was a volunteer teacher. I just wanted them to learn how to relax because I related to them so much. The very first thing I taught them, like any good yoga teacher does, is how to breathe. So you follow your breath and you watch it. It's almost like you get your binoculars out, your inner binoculars, and you watch the breath come in through your nostrils. And then you watch it as it slowly leaves your nostrils. And with just that one breath, everybody who was following my instructions, they just like flipped out. They said, oh my God, did you see that? Did you see that? There were like sparkles of light happening in most of their heads. I said, girls, that's called oxygen. To take a deep breath so that you're truly oxygenating yourself, because most people have very shallow breathing. So that's the very first and the most important one, and universally taught around the world by everybody, anybody from a monk up in the Himalayas to, people who are learning to do it with a psychiatric, therapy, like relaxation technique, they call it. And then, of course, you can get into other ways of stilling the thinking process, which includes things like staring at a mandala, a painting that has just no object, but it just brings you in, or staring at a lit candle. A lot of people like that, or listening to a repetitive chant or some music that does not have a lot of words, very soothing. They have so many beautiful yoga kirtan people these days who have such a great music selection. But my favorite is I do use a mantra, and everybody can experiment with their own mantra, or they can find a teacher and be given a mantra. And that's another thing. It's good to have a teacher. If you're learning to meditate, there's plenty of people who are teaching meditation these days, and a lot of excellent ones. They're available on the internet, and they're available usually at the local, even gym or, community center. Everybody's meditating. So if you really want to learn how to meditate, ask. Like if you might have a friend who meditates, just say, hey, will you share it with me how you do it? And when I was raising our kids, I gave them their first meditation class or instruction as a gift when they became teenagers. I think every teenager should learn how to meditate.
And that's so cool about the breath work. It's so powerful. I'm still learning myself and getting familiar with it, but I've just noticed after just starting how much calmer and happier I feel. So I'm really excited to learn more about that.
Do you want me to explain the why, the big why?
Yes, of course.
Oh, it's so interesting, because everybody thinks, oh man, it must be so hard to calm yourself or to get spiritual, but it's the easiest thing in the world. And if people could just realize it's what our human nature is all about, to have this, what's called cosmic consciousness or God consciousness, Christ consciousness, the divine, the sacred, as our everyday, way of being. So the breath in the yogic world is the bridge. I call it the bridge. But the breath also is the connection between our lower chakras, and the chakras are like the system of thinking about the elevation of our consciousness, how we start from just learning to take care of ourselves so we don't die. We learn to eat. We learn to come out of a storm. We learn to, get out of danger, like not walk into a fire. That's basic 101. That's the first chakra, survive. And then the second chakra is about creativity. That's either procreation, like, make that baby and get sexual, or get creative and start, writing books and writing songs and, having adventures. That's the second adventure, the second chakra. The third is where you own your own power. And that's a very powerful thing, to own your own power, where you're not just like copying somebody or waiting to be told. And then you come up into the heart chakra, where once the heart is opened, the floodgates of resistance have been dismantled and you're ready for the higher realms. So that is also connected to your breath, because your lungs and your breath are in the same area. They're in the same place in your body. And once your heart has been opened, your breath is so much freer. And then you start going into the throat chakra, where everything is truth. You can no longer lie once your heart has been opened. And then the sixth chakra is your third eye, where you start experiencing what they call God consciousness, through meditation. Your third eye just pulsates when you start dealing with these energies. And I'm not talking about in your dream state. I'm talking about just regular life. But of course, it can also be experienced in the dream state. And then the seventh chakra is when you are absolutely in there. You have become God realized, you have become enlightened. And what a cool thing to be enlightened. So once the breath has been acknowledged as being the bridge, then you realize that, wow, without me even thinking about it, I'm breathing, because it's an automatic function of our body. One does not have to say, okay, lungs, bring in the breath. Okay, we're ready to bring it out now. No, it happens naturally. Our brain is working with an automatic function. But the breathing, just like the blinking of our eyes, is also an autonomic function where we can blink our eyes of our own will and we can breathe of our own will. These are the only two functions really in our whole system of our body where we can either have it on automatic, or we can say to ourselves, hey, I'm going to breathe at my pace. I'm going to either do super fast breathing or super slow breathing or super deep breathing or whatever. And so once you realize that you can have this connection with your breath, then that is automatically a connection to your higher use of your perceptions in life. And things start happening. Things just start cooking because you're in a different plane of awareness. Isn't that cool?
Explanation. Yeah, it's a great explanation. And I really resonate with it. And what I think is crazy, just a little side note, is how we all, these answers come from within us as you start to realize these things and learn these things. That expression, the runner's high. They feel, I heard that the lungs produce a lot of DMT in the body naturally. So we're getting these crazy experiences just by learning how to breathe.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'm not surprised. We're like a little chemical workshop here. And so many things just happen for our benefit, because I think the universe is supporting us on our journey toward enlightenment. It really is. The universe does not want us to be, depressed, negative, oppressed, abused, or whatever, stifled. And that's where evolution is heading. We are definitely becoming spiritualized as a human blended family on this planet. That's my belief and that's my experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's amazing how we're all on this journey together to help each other raise our consciousness and learn about why we came here and what all this life has to offer. I would love to hear about your art and your dreams and how that journey has been like. Do you consciously create art in your dreams?
Well, I have no control over anything. I'm just a channel. And, when you have dedicated your life to exploring the higher realms, like I have in all different respects, not just dreams, but through psychedelics, through plant medicine, through meditation. I mean, today I am totally drug and alcohol free, and that is the highest high there is. I want to tell everybody right now. But in my youth, I was a botanical illustrator for botanists who were studying psychedelics. And so I did a lot of plant medicines. And I'm very familiar with all the mood altering substances that humankind has used. And I drew a lot of them. And when you're drawing a plant, you want to really become one with that plant. You want to feel that you're not just a different species, that you are molecularly connected. So I have that ability because I trained myself as an artist to be one with my subject. So these days, when I create art, I just open myself like a blank channel, like a blank picture saying, just fill me, the divine, oh, Holy Mother, great spirit. And just use me. I'm a tool. But that took many years of first learning how to draw, first learning how to color, first learning how to use, the tools and doing whatever I could to have this accessible. It's like a musician. If they really practice their instrument, then when they're creating a song, they don't have to think what chord they're playing. They just play it because it just comes out of them. So when you make yourself a channel for either the dream state or the higher realms in our real waking state, but really, who knows which is real, right? The dream state or this one. That's debated throughout, eons, even in the scriptures, the yogic scriptures, even Shakespeare, he says, is this a dream? But that we'll find out someday.
I think they're both real.
This is the great mystery. Yeah, the great mystery. I think the one thing about working with dreams as an artist and a writer, because I'm getting ready to publish my first novel, and that's where I really tap into the imagination, and I just let it all come out through my writing rather than creating visual things, is to trust that you have good intentions, and to trust that you are a vehicle, like a channel, and to trust that your connection with the sacred in life, higher power, whatever you call it, God, whatever word you use to connect with this power that's greater than ourselves, is a good force. Because when I was earlier in my life, when I had those horrible dreams, the nightmares, I doubted that I was coming from a good place. And my artwork was not pretty. I took all that stuff to the dump. When I got to the place where I said, I don't want to be in that nightmare anymore. And for me, that was the end of my addiction. I had a long journey with addiction, and I got into recovery in my mid-30s. And so I am now longer as a sober person, sober and clean, than I was when I was a using person. And I basically had a long journey with that, because like many people who had to suffer abuse of any kind, they have a hard time with reality. So I today use the energy of being a creative person as almost like a way of communicating with people, with, my fellow humans who are on the same path as I am, meaning even if they are not aware that they're awakened, or they are nearly awakened, or they might never get awake until their very last breath on this earth.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone has their own journey. I've learned that you can't force anyone or make anyone realize or awaken. It's our own journey. It's unique to everybody. But I also, on that note, want to ask you, or more so just give you kind of a chance, anything you think about dream related or spiritual related, anything related that you just are called to talk about, or just like a little message to kind of end off on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I think it's very important for people in this time where the situation is tense, with Putin being a demented dictator, and the virus also, right now it's being quiet here in the States, but who knows what's going to happen. I think it's really important for everybody to just be calm and realize that whatever happens is meant to happen, and that as long as we take precautions and we do what we're supposed to do to stay healthy, eat well, think well, be in good company, do whatever you have to do to not get the coronavirus, but also believe that this sacred experience of being alive is a gift, and we can use our powers to help heal what's damaged. So I urge everybody to send a prayer, for instance, to Putin, to help transform this demented dictator, to help his heart be opened, and not spend a lot of time on Putin, but also include him in our ability to heal the earth and heal the wrongs, and heal the imbalances, and to heal the environment, and to heal the brokenness and the sadness of people who have lost loved ones, or who are suffering. And it's very important to use this power that we spend so much time yearning for first, then we get, because we can get it if we do the right things, either by a teacher telling us, or listening to a good podcast like this, or reading good books like mine, or looking at good art that inspires you, and stay in that high vibration, no matter what happens. No matter what happens.
Beautiful words. I love it. I'm excited for this podcast. I know you have a podcast too.
Oh yeah, the Z Lord podcast is a hoot. Yeah, whatever we can do to help others raise themselves up. That's why I'm a podcaster. I'm sure that's why you enjoy podcasting too. And it's amazing. I mean, the world is so hungry right now for the alternative to fear, which has basically run the planet since the beginning of time. I mean, we're definitely at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads where the spiritualization of the planet is happening right now. It's already begun. Did you know about the event, the worldwide event called the Harmonic Convergence in 1987? Right. Well, it was a celebration worldwide of people like myself who had already committed themselves to helping others lift up. And so we had events all around the world in 1987. I forget the exact date. It was something like June. And that was the date that had been forecasted by several different sources, like Nostradamus, who was a psychic in the Middle Ages, and the Mayan calendar, which chose that date as being very special of humanity was going to change. So it was, you should check it out. It's called the Harmonic Convergence. And so I celebrated it kind of privately, but I was involved with a group of artists in New York City. And we used to meet and talk about how we were going to honor it and how we as artists, and not just visual artists, but, musicians and dancers and writers, everybody who's in the creative arts were dedicating themselves to help spread this arising of consciousness that's so important.
If you made it this far, thanks for listening. And if you resonate with anything related to dream work or creative dreaming and you want to come on the podcast, just go to thedreamworldpodcast.com and send us an email. You can also find us on Instagram. And if you're looking to learn more about lucid dreaming and some techniques, you can follow us on TikTok too. There's a lot of good content on there. You can also join our Clubhouse rooms every Tuesday where we have open rooms and discussions with dreamers from all around the world. So you can join in and listen or even ask questions and share your stories with us. This is an interactive podcast and we want to hear everybody's experiences and grow together and elevate together. So if you're new here, welcome to the Dream World.